It stirs emotion, even from scientists who are stunned by its cosmic perfection.
You gotta hand it to Saturn for being the most beautiful thing out there. It's been my favorite planet since I first saw it through a telescope.
While it looks sleepy and serene, the sixth planet from the Sun is anything but. Saturn is a dynamo whose beauty is skin deep.
Saturn is an absolutely frigid place. You wouldn't want to step out on the surface. For one reason, you'd fall because there is no surface, but secondly, you'd freeze to death instantly.
Saturn is a hunk of hydrogen and helium that races around its axis, distorting its shape.
When you watch a professional toss a pizza, as it spins around, it flattens out. So it's the same kind of idea. Because it's spinning so rapidly, it's actually sort of squashed, sort of bulges in the middle. It's called an oblate spheroid.
Even though it's much more massive than our own planet, you'd actually weigh slightly less on Saturn than you do on Earth. A 150-pound human would weigh only 137 pounds on Saturn. That's because Saturn has such a low density, the only planet in the solar system less dense than water.
Saturn is so bloated, the gases take up so much space compared to the total amount of mass in Saturn that its density is less than 1. So if we could get somehow some really big ocean and put Saturn in it, it would float.
Saturn is the second largest planet in our solar system. It is a gas giant, a mass of hydrogen and helium 750 times the size of Earth. A day on the planet is 10.6 hours long, and it takes 29.5 Earth years to orbit the Sun. It has 48 named moons. Saturn has been around for 4.5 billion years. It formed by accreting carbon dust particle by particle into a rocky core several times the size of Earth. Then it was able to attract gases like hydrogen and helium, which collapsed under gravity.
As things start collapsing, this cloud began to compress. It began rotating more rapidly, but along its axis from, let's say, top to bottom, it wasn't rotating, so it was free to collapse under the force of gravity.
It's called the conservation of angular momentum, a principle on display at your local ice rink.
If you push your arms out, if you're an ice skater, you'll go more slowly. If you pull your arms in, then you'll be more concentrated towards the axis of rotation and you'll have to spin faster. And that's just what happens for a planet as it condenses.
A spinning Saturn came out of this collapsed disk. The feature that has made Saturn the most iconic planet in our solar system is her majestic, shimmering rings. They are incredibly big, 173,000 miles in diameter, wider than 21 Earths side by side.
So it would take you 2 days in a really fast rocket ship to get from one side of the rings to the other. They're huge.
However, these huge rings also are unbelievably thin, measuring about 65 feet. When viewed from the side, they virtually disappear.
They are no thicker than about 1, maybe 2 stories in a modern-day building. They're paper thin in comparison.
The rings may look like perfect solid disks. However, they are actually made up of billions of pieces of space debris. But what exactly are they?
They are are countless icy bodies that range in size from objects as big as houses all the way down to the finest powdery snow you might ski on in Utah. And they're made of water ice.
They're particles that have been pulverized, so they've smashed into each other. They've broken up into many, many little particles.
If you were to be inside those rings, it'd be like in a beehive. They're all over the place, like bees in a swarm. It's a hostile place. You do not want to try to put a spacecraft through those rings.
And these particles spin very fast.
And they're screaming around the planet at 20 to 40,000 miles per hour.
The inner rings spin faster than the outer rings, and there's a reason for that.
Kepler's laws say that if you're going to orbit in a circle around a central body, if you're close up, you move really fast, and if you're far away, you move really slow.
If a particle the size of a grain of sand moving at hypersonic speed were to strike a spacecraft, it would be like a shotgun blast at point-blank range.
Now get outside the rings, things are much quieter. If you want to take a country drive around Saturn, go this way instead of following the rings.
Why the rings are there is one of the planet's great mysteries. The rings might have once been some of Saturn's moons that got too close and smashed into each other. The fractured pieces were held by the planet's gravity to become its rings. According to another theory, something big and fast might have crashed into one of Saturn's many moons. The broken shards were sucked in by gravity and fell into orbit, forming the rings.
Quem é igual a ti, ó Senhor, dentre os deuses? Eli.